This is HyTrace, a simple, accessible hydrogen traceability. Greenwashing. What is greenwashing? Is when a company pretends to be environmentally conscious for marketing purposes but actually isn't making any notable sustainable efforts. What is the problem? There are different types of hydrogen, blue and gray hydrogen. Both come from natural gas and steam reforming. But the blue hydrogen stores or reuses the CO2. On the contrary, gray hydrogen emits the CO2 into the atmosphere. Finally, green hydrogen doesn't emit CO2 and comes entirely from renewable energy. In this way, a fair and just transition looks into every aspect of the energy industry. This includes emissions from the entire life cycle, as the CEO from Repsol, John Joshua Imas, proposed. This is why we need to look into the entire carbon impact. For this reason, there are three different scopes. Scope 1, direct process emissions. Scope 2, emissions from power consumption. Scope 3, indirect emissions. We already see policies addressing this topic. The Green Deal Fit for 55 is a set of proposals to revive and update EU legislation and to put in place new initiatives with the aim of ensuring that EU policies are in line with the climate goals. What is the problem? There is a lack of information and policies cannot be made unless there is a way to easily and accurately measure environmental impact.
This problematic is what our team at HyTrace tries to solve. Combined, we are 5 engineers with a diverse background in chemical, industrial, mechanical, and geoengineering. Together, we were able to look precisely into the complexity of the hydrogen supply chain in order to generate a solution for the industry and regulators. In a first step, we met with the directors from the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center. With the leading experts in the hydrogen industry, we identified the problems occurring from complex supply chains. The idea of traceable emissions for the hydrogen supply chain was established. In a second step, we developed a solution and a product to trace supply chains and make environmental impacts understandable and visible. This has been done in close cooperation with UPC professors and researchers. In a third step, we validated and customized our idea based on companies in the hydrogen and chemical industry like SSAB and Carbon Mines. Finally, we contacted TÜV Rheinland to see if our product can be certified with the ISO norms for life cycle assessment. Focusing on the final product, we offer a software platform to trace environmental impacts along the entire hydrogen supply chain. We combine real industry data, LCA models, and process values to generate the most accurate carbon footprint for companies in the hydrogen industry. This data is collected and visualized in our H2 platform, HyTrace. Next, we show how HyTrace actually works.
HyTrace is the first platform to perform life cycle assessment from cradle to gate, taking into account not only the process, but also the upstream and downstream emissions, and then presents the results of the analysis in a customer-friendly way. Let's see how it works. LCA results are divided into three main categories. In the first one, process steps, the customer can choose one of the options from the product life cycle and examine the total environmental impact of this step. Let's look at the example of hydrogen production using wind energy. By clicking on raw materials, the emissions and environmental impacts associated with the production and operation of wind turbines, electrolysis production, and storage can be explored. Then, going into even more detail, the customer can explore the source inflows and average air emissions at the selected stage. Let's see the next category, environmental impacts. Here, customer can select the factor of interest, and by clicking on it, they can find out its values at each stage of the product life cycle. Let's check the carbon dioxide. Here, the user can find out which process step generates the highest CO2 emissions. Let's check the last category, which is suppliers. Here, customers can check the environmental impact of different suppliers and the average CO2 emissions of different production technologies, so they can better understand their own environmental impact.
Hydrogen is already a common input for many industries around the world. The chemical and oil refining are the biggest consumers, being the latter the largest consumer. On the other hand, hydrogen has become interesting for many sectors since it is possible to decarbonize energy-intensive and carbon-intensive industries using renewable hydrogen. Nonetheless, today available hydrogen production routes are carbon-intensive processes, which poses a big issue for the development of the technology. In this way, the total available market today is of 90 million tons of hydrogen per year. Furthermore, Europe is leading the energy transition worldwide. We see a trend strongly targeting sustainable supply chains as a response to a variety of environmental threats. In fact, these threats are added to the Fit for 55 scopes, making Europe the best location to place the technology for the first stages of adoption, so this will be the serviceable available market. Furthermore, countries as Germany are adopting laws for sustainable supply chain. Added to this, the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center has 1,022 member companies that are committed to large-scale deployment of clean hydrogen technologies by 2030. For these companies, it is important to track their environmental impact to further certify its processes. Now, looking at the usual expected percentages of the market obtained by startups, and considering that Germany has more than a fifth of the total European hydrogen usage, it is safe to assume that the serviceable obtainable market will be around 20% of the number referred to before, with a market of 204 companies. Now, looking into the future, we see that this market is growing rapidly due to decarbonization goals. In this way, it is projected that this sector has a TAM of 530 million tons of hydrogen annually, with an SAM of 65 billion euros in Europe. But who is going to adopt our services first? First, we identify the type of companies for each step of the adoption curve. Then, the first adopters will be the innovators, which are companies adopting a sustainable supply chain. Secondly, the early adopters will arrive, aiming to shift to sustainable supply chain as a competitive strategy. Companies that might be part of these first stages are Repsol, which is an upstream oil and gas industry, SSAB, which produced the first zero-emission steel, and Uniper, which is a company in the energy sector, developing renewable energy projects and aiming to become an important player in the hydrogen sector. Lastly, we have the early majority, late majority, and laggards, which will adopt the product due to law enforcement. After analyzing the market and identifying the adopters of the market, it was possible to develop the business model of the company. It was identified through interviews with possible customers that the key partners, the value proposition, and the revenue streams were key for a smooth growing of the company. Auditors, policymakers, hydrogen agencies such as the EGHAG and the Hydrogen Council, and investors are key partners that will help grow the company while benefiting from HyTrace at the same time. The certificates HyTrace will emit, its data security, and the LCA services offered are over the today industry standards, making this the value proposition. The revenues will allow to continuously improve the service, then the certificates emitted, a regular access to data through a platform, and the sending of reports are the revenue streams of the company.
In order to bring the idea to life, during the first 2 months of the project, it is planned to find a software engineer who will prepare a prototype version of the software. Then, in the next 3 months, it is scheduled to present the idea and the platform to potential investors such as venture capital funds and business angels, as well as to look for financing from European funds. In the 4th month, it is planned to start collecting data, as this process is time-consuming and requires funding from investors. From the 5th month, it is also intended to start working with the European Green Hydrogen Technology Acceleration Center. In this way, software can be promoted in collaboration with companies in the green hydrogen supply chain. At that same time, it is expected that the company will be able to offer the product directly to the sustainable hydrogen companies. By the end of the first year, the platform is expected to be fully developed and the methodology validated. For this reason, after 12 months, the platform will be launched in an initial test phase. The network of connection created through alliances with companies such as European Green Hydrogen Technology Acceleration Center will be used to find the first customers. After 6 months from the start of the project, a salesperson and the general manager will be hired to increase sales and develop the company's strategy. This will allow the company to reach its goal of selling 2 or 3 LCAs by the end of the second year.
An initial investment from the founders of 20,000 euros will be enough to support the startup's activities long enough for it to start generating revenue and finding more significant investments. By the 5th month, we will have gotten everything ready in order to get a further 35,000 euro investment. At this stage, the outside investment will allow us to prepare the first sales and further develop the software. This will include hiring a chemical or environmental engineer and a new software engineer. The first sales will then come in the second semester with the help of the second investment and the acquired partnerships. These sales will require hiring a sales and marketing manager. Starting with small LCA reports at 15,000 euros each, the initial sales are expected to secure a total 105,000 euros in revenues by the end of the first year. On the second year, with an experimental version of the software and more contacts in the industry, bigger LCA reports will be sold as well at 50,000 euros each. This new revenue stream will allow a 70,000 euro investment on software design, which will be spread across 6 months. The finished version of the platform will allow the subscription model of our business to start, which will boost our sales and the growth of the company. This growth will also allow us to hire one of the founders as a manager. In the end, this will mean a return of investment of about 1.5 years, and the calculated income of the second year is over 150 euros, which I would say is a very attractive proposition to investors. So join us and ensure a green future for hydrogen.